Prince Harry's exasperated ghostwriter shouted at Royal in heated argument. Prince Harry's ghostwriter revealed that working on the Duke of Sussex's memoir, Spare wasn't exactly a walk in the park. I was exasperated with Prince Harry, J.R. Moringer wrote in the New Yorker Monday, recalling one particularly tense Zoom call that took place at 2 a.m. My head was pounding, my jaw was clenched, and I was starting to raise my voice. Things became so strained between the two that Moringer, 58, thought he might be fired from the project. Some part of me was still able to step outside the situation and think, this is so weird. I'm shouting at Prince Harry, he shared. Then, as Harry started going back at me, as his cheeks flushed and his eyes narrowed, a more pressing thought occurred. Whoa, it could all end right here. It was the summer of 2022, and the novelist and Harry had come to a difficult passage concerning the prince's time in the British Army that they kept disagreeing on 2 years into their working relationship. At the end of a grueling military exercise, Harry was captured by pretend terrorists, according to Moringer. He's hooded, dragged to an underground bunker, beaten, frozen, starved, stripped, forced into excruciating stress positions by captors wearing black balaclavas, according to Moringer. The point of the simulation was to determine whether the royal had what it took to survive a real-life capture in a war zone. In the end, Harry's kidnappers threw him against a wall, choked and hurled insults at him, including a cruel dig about his late mother, Princess Diana. One of the participants later apologized. Harry always wanted to end this scene with a thing he said to his captors, a comeback that struck me as unnecessary and somewhat inane, the Tenderbar author wrote, noting that he had always resisted including the remark during the editing process. Finally, during the tense Zoom call, Harry explained his mindset. He exhaled and calmly explained that all his life people had belittled his intellectual capabilities, and this flash of cleverness proved that, even after being kicked and punched and deprived of sleep and food, he had his wits about him, Moringer wrote. But the writer doubled down that the retort was an unnecessary inclusion. Harry eventually conceded and then quipped, I really enjoy getting you worked up like that. Moringer was first approached about ghostwriting Spare in the summer of 2020. He admittedly hesitated at first, but then found out it was for Prince Harry, so he agreed because he was curious, of course. Although they got along right away, Moringer was also concerned, because he was not sure how much the Invictus Games founder wanted to reveal in the book. However, he ultimately found the prince's story both relatable and infuriating, explaining, the way he'd been treated, by both strangers and intimates, was grotesque. As the COVID-19 pandemic waned, Moringer was able to travel to Montecito, Calif, to meet Harry in real life. The Duke won over the author's daughter with his encyclopedic knowledge of Mona, revealing that his favorite scene is when hi, the chicken is lost at sea. Moringer also revealed that he went twice by himself to stay in Harry and Meghan Markle's guest house, where Meghan and their son Archie would visit me on their afternoon walks. Meghan, knowing I was missing my family, was forever bringing trays of food and sweets, he remembered. As the work progressed, Harry became excited by the idea of rebutting all the falsehoods published about him in the press. Moringer wrote that he was shocked by the media frenzy when Spare was finally published in January, saying he was even stalked by reporters and photographers, which he found frightening. Harry, for his part, was self-possessed and expansive while giving a speech thanking his publishing team at a book party thrown by a friend. He mentioned my advice, to trust the book, and said he was glad that he did, because it felt incredible to have the truth out there, to feel his voice caught free, Moringer wrote. There were tears in his eyes. Mine too. I was exasperated. Prince Harry's ghostwriter J.R. Moringer tells of tensions between them while working on Spare, and reveals their relationship became so fraught that he shouted at the royal in Row at 2 a.m. Tensions between the Duke of Sussex and the rest of his family are so bad that Mike Tyndall once publicly joked that the royals would like to throw a few punches at him. Now, Prince Harry's ghostwriter, J.R. Moringer, has revealed that their relationship became so fraught while they were working on the book Spare that he started shouting at the king's younger son at one point. I was exasperated with Prince Harry, Moringer admits. My head was pounding, my jaw was clenched, and I was starting to raise my voice. And yet some part of me was still able to step outside the situation and think, this is so weird. I'm shouting at Prince Harry. Then, as Harry started going back at me, as his cheeks flushed and his eyes narrowed, a more pressing thought occurred. Whoa, it could all end right here. The incident last summer is recalled in a new article that Moringer has written for the New Yorker magazine. He explains that the dispute came as they discussed an incident in which the Duke of Sussex was captured by pretend terrorists during military exercises. Harry's captors screamed insults at him, culminating in a vile dig at Princess Diana. One of the participants later apologized to him. Harry always wanted to end this scene with a thing he said to his captors, a comeback that struck me as unnecessary and somewhat inane, Moringer discloses. For months, I'd been crossing out the comeback, and for months Harry had been pleading for it to go back in. Now he wasn't pleading. He was insisting, and it was 2 a.m., and I was starting to lose it. Although this wasn't the first time that Harry and I had argued, it felt different. It felt as if we were hurtling towards some kind of decisive rupture, in part because Harry was no longer saying anything. He was just glaring into the camera. Finally, he exhaled and calmly explained that all his life people had belittled his intellectual capabilities, and this flash of cleverness proved that, even after being kicked and punched and deprived of sleep and food, he had his wits about him. Oh, I said. Okay, it made sense now. But I still refused. Why? Because I told him, everything you just said is about you. You want the world to know that you did a good job, that you were smart. But, strange as it may seem, memoir isn't about you. It's not even the story of your life. It's a story carved from your life, a particular series of events chosen because they have the greatest resonance for the widest range of people. And at this point in the story, those people don't need to know anything more than that your captors said a cruel thing about your mom. After finally accepting the writer's explanation, he shot me a mischievous grin. I really enjoy getting you worked up like that. I burst into laughter and shook my head, and we moved on to his next set of edits. Prince Harry's ghostwriter recalls shouting at the royal while writing about when a soldier made a vile dig at Princess Diana. Prince Harry's memoir Spare, which was released in January and set the record for the fastest-selling nonfiction book in history, revealed intimate details about his life as a royal, his relationship with King Charles and Prince William, and his lifelong issues with the British press. Harry worked with the ghostwriter J.R. Moringer on the book, who opened up about what it was like to write Spare, in an essay published by The New Yorker on Monday, titled Notes from Prince Harry's Ghostwriter. The essay narrates Moringer's path to becoming a ghostwriter, what his experience was like when Spare was published, and his working relationship with Prince Harry, which grew intimate over their 2-year process of writing the book. Although they developed a close relationship, Moringer recapped a fight he and Harry had via Zoom in the summer of 2022 at the beginning of the essay. Moringer said they were discussing a passage of the book where Harry was tortured as part of a military training exercise, and one of his fellow soldiers made a vile dig at Princess Diana. The fellow soldier later apologized to Harry, which Harry told Moringer he responded to with a comeback. Moringer didn't want to include Harry's response, which led the pair to argue. I was exasperated with Prince Harry. Moringer opened the essay. My head was pounding. My jaw was clenched, and I was starting to raise my voice. And yet some part of me was still able to step outside the situation and think, this is so weird. I'm shouting at Prince Harry. Moringer said Harry went on to explain to him that he wanted to include his response, because people questioned his intelligence throughout his life. But Moringer ended up convincing Harry to omit the comeback, as he thought it wouldn't resonate with readers. Moringer also said in his essay that he and Harry bonded while writing Spare, particularly over the mutual loss of their mothers. Princess Diana had died 23 years before our first conversation, and my mother, Dorothy Moringer, had just died, and our griefs felt equally fresh, Moringer wrote. He said that Harry's grief is what ultimately convinced him to ghostwrite the memoir. In retrospect, though, I think I selfishly welcomed the idea of being able to speak with someone, an expert, about that never-ending feeling of wishing you could call your mom, he said. Moringer and Harry began collaborating on the memoir in 2020, with the author even staying at Harry and Meghan Markle's guest house on 2 occasions. Moringer had the option to remain anonymous when they began working together, but his identity was leaked during the writing process. Spare itself was then leaked a week before its publication date. Because his identity was known when Spare was published, Moringer said he became swept up in the same tabloid frenzy Prince Harry faces on a daily basis. He said paparazzi photographed him at his child's school as he tried to drop them off, and a reporter appeared at his house the same day. Then, not 1 hour later, as I sat at my desk, trying to calm myself, I looked up to see a woman's face at my window, Moringer said. As if in a dream, I walked to the window and asked, "Who are you?" "Through the glass," she whispered. "I'm from the Mail on Sunday." Moringer went on to say that Harry comforted him and his wife after the experience. Harry was all heart. He said of the Duke of Sussex's response, "He asked if my family was okay, asked for physical descriptions of the people harassing us, promised to make some calls, see if anything could be done. We both knew nothing could be done. But still, I felt gratitude and some regret. I'd worked hard to understand the ordeals of Harry Windsor, and now I saw that I understood nothing," he said. Empathy is thin gruel compared with the marrow of experience.